Cat's a Paul for the locker room here. If you haven't already, I appreciate if you hit that subscribe button. But let's get right into it. I wanted to have a conversation about the salary cap, and mainly due to the Auston Matthews video I did. And I kind of want to make a few things kind of clear, because I should have put it in the video, but quick video, sometimes you just omit a few things. With the current salary cap that we have in the NHL, and just the financial burdens with pretty much every sports league due to the pandemic, cap has gone up very, very small last couple seasons. And I think to make the best financial decisions, you have to get people with max market value, right? If they're going to be getting, for example, that Auston Matthews deal, it's $13.25 million. You want to get him for, 8 seasons. It's not like back in the day with Sidney Crosby with a 12-year deal. You can't do that anymore under the current CBA. But I wanted to look into the salary cap and how it has, I would have to say, grown over the last decade or so. Now, when you look back in the salary cap, let's just do a decade from here. Up top here are just estimates, right? They're expecting it to bump up $5 million in 24-25, bump up to 92 in 25-26. And I want to say this. I hope that happens. I'm just not sure if it will. So when you go back to 2013, 2014, it is kind of funny in this way. 64.3 million was the salary cap. And this does give me hope in some regards. In a decade time, right, we've seen about almost 20 million increase in the salary cap, and that's a good thing. We want to see the NHL continually grow and expand. But when you look at the trend since 2019, 2020, up until now, it went from, actually 2018, 2019, it went from 79.5 million to 83.5 million. So only a 4 million increase the last few seasons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's just, I want things to expand. I want the league to keep growing. The one thing that does worry me with the NHL, because some of this is due to the pandemic and some of it isn't, I feel like where other sports league, right, with the NBA, you have these super max contracts that are just ridiculous. You're having bench players making like 5 times what the superstar in the NHL makes, right? The MLB, that's always been kind of known with their contracts, those guaranteed contracts, like the Bonilla Day, and it seems like with Strasburg and Washington, that will be a thing as well due to him going out. But not to make it all about sports comparisons, but the NHL has, I would say, a limit in its fan base. Now, I don't think that's due to the amount of amazing talent in the game. I just think the financial need you have to have when you're not in a colder climate to play hockey is quite expensive. Thus, you're going to have less of a fan base. Now, there's casuals and there's people that have never played hockey that are huge hockey fans. But usually when you grow up with a sport and you play it your whole life, or even you play just a little bit, that is how you become a fan. That's why soccer, or if you're from Europe or anywhere else, football is the most popular sport in the world. All you need is a soccer ball. Like with a football, like in American football, you just need, a football to go play catch and go play in a lot somewhere. In baseball, a little bit more expensive, but you just need a bat, a ball, and a glove, and you can play a makeshift game. Basketball, you just need a basketball. Whereas hockey, you need so much equipment. You need skates, you need a stick, you need gloves, shin pads, pants. It costs a small fortune to play hockey. And not to go on this whole soapbox of the expense of hockey, but I feel like that's what keeps hockey it keeps hockey to a certain level. It's not the top 3 sport in the United States. Now in Canada, it's its national game. Because the beautiful thing about Canada, because I've played a lot of tournaments up there, man, in the winter, it's cold. If you've ever been to Edmonton, in the winter, it is cold. You can just go find a frozen pond pretty much anywhere, but that's just not the same thing that everyone has. But getting back on point, I apologize for a little ranty video, but the one thing I'm I'm cautious of is they're predicting quite a bit of bump here, right? From 83.5 to 87.5. I don't think that happens. I don't know if 4 million will be the next thing, because I thought we were going to see a bigger bump than we did this season. Experts coming in like at least a 2 to 3 million bump, and that just didn't happen. The NHL lost a ton of money this past year financially due to the pandemic, and I don't think it's for a lack of the NHL not trying. I just think it's unfortunate circumstances that all these leagues are facing. But in comparison to all these other leagues that have like far bigger fan bases, the NHL doesn't really have that benefit. And an interesting thing for me when it comes to roster construction, you want to keep people to a certain percentage. I feel like 12 to maybe around the 13% is kind of the sweet spot for those higher echelon players, like those superstar players to have on your roster. Because when you start exceeding, like around, if you get around 14, 15%, well, it might not sound like a gigantic percentage. You just don't have enough talent to spread, or I should say enough money to spread around to get and acquire talent. I liked a lot of the moves the Maple Leafs made this past season. I really liked Domi. I liked the Bertuzzi trade. I watched him play up close. While he does have a little bit of injury history last season, or just kind of in general, admittedly, I think the talent is there for him to be a phenomenal player and score, 60 plus points, be a 30 goal scorer. I liked what I saw from him, and I think playmaking aspect of his game can be a little bit underrated. He was phenomenal with finding Pasternak for a lot of really sweet goals. But I do think when a player takes a significant amount of cap, it just makes teams far more difficult to build. Now with Toronto currently, and this is kind of the interesting with Toronto. I know some people get so furious when I say Toronto. I know it's Toronto. That's the proper pronunciation. They're currently 13 mil over the cap. Now, I don't believe that's accounting for Matt Murray or a couple guys that are going to be going on LTIR. Yeah, I don't think, it just has him on IR, so like that'll take 4. But like they got a little, and they got Muzzin. That's a little bit about 10 mil. So the cap situation isn't as dire as some people might believe, but they're still going to have to kind of shake it up a little bit just to get underneath the threshold. But when I look at the Maple Leafs and I look at the quality of team here, and I guess it just didn't pop up, the quality team here, like on paper, the Maple Leafs should be a very good team. The one thing I worry about from this point forward, going into the future, it's not just that Auston Matthews got paid. Is he worth $13.25 million? Yeah, I would agree with that. I think if you had an 8-year deal, 13.25, it's not that big of a deal. But you want to get the term, and I think 4 years just isn't enough, because when he turns 30, he's just going to cash in again during the prime of his career. But it's not just about Auston Matthews cashing in. Mitchell Marner, he's up very soon, and he's already making $10.9 million. So what's the expectation there? And Tavares gets off the book, so that's $11 million available, right? Soon enough. But then you got William Nylander, who says he wants to stay and be a part of the Maple Leaf core. He had 87 points in 82 games played. Is he a $10 million player? I mean, he's going to ask for the moon. And the problem, I feel like, with the Maple Leafs, and just some teams just in general, they fall in love with their own players so much that they kind of overestimate their value. Now, individually themselves, they probably could justify that cap hit. But by paying 2, 3 players, 4 players, so much money, it makes it far more difficult for you to fill out the rest of your roster. Now, I know the Bruins only won cup, and I'm not trying to be biased here, because there's other teams like, the Sidney Crosby, for example, with the Penguins, right? I don't think I'd be crazy to say, yeah, at the time, the $8.7 million for Crosby was the higher echelon of like contract in the league, but that deal became a bargain. If Matthews was signed to 8 years, and then within the next 9 years, because he has 1 year left on his former deal, yeah, I mean, you'd have contract control of Matthews for 9 years. Then you could build a team down the road, because the cap will keep going up, whether that be $1 mil or $2 mil, but it will keep creating space, and you can make a far deeper and far better team. The one thing I just, when I look at some of these very cap strong teams, is I feel like they fall in love with their players. We're in, Tampa Bay is actually 6 points. It's almost 7 mil over the cap. Now, I know there's a lot of cap manipulation in Tampa, but for comparison, right? And I'm not saying Brandon Hagel is anywhere near the caliber player of Matthews. Please do not get that twisted. Please. Hagel is a young player, only 24, had a career year last year, and he has one more year left on that former deal for $1.5 million. But when the $6.5 million kicks in, throughout the prime of his career, he's going to be a bargain relative around the NHL. Because when the cap keeps going up, it will just justify his contract. And with a young player with some upside, even if he stays around a 60-point producer, $6.5 million with the cap going up is not a terrible thing. The criticism I've had with Auston Matthews in that video is that I feel if he wants to win and he wants to be in Toronto, he would just take the 8-year deal. He gives all the lip service, says he wants to be there, and that's the thing you should do. You shouldn't be like, well, I signed this deal, I hate these people, or something like crazy like that. But if he truly wanted to win, and he truly wanted to win with a Maple Leaf sweater, he would take the max term, because he's making $13.25 million a year. And I know some are going to argue, well, the cap's going to go significantly, that means he can get more money, but that's kind of proving my point. He's taking up more percentage of the cap, and it makes it far more difficult to win a team. The Bruins were competitive for a very long time because players took team-friendly deals. Now, that there's a little bit of a changing of a guard there in Boston with Pastrnak. He signed, I don't want to speak out of turn. Yeah, Pastrnak signed for $11.25 million. And actually, to be fair to Pastrnak, with the season that he had and some of the contracts we're seeing now, the $11.25 million isn't as horrific to some Bruins fans. I'm not saying myself, but to some Bruins fans as it looked when he signed it. But when you take up significant amount of cap, like Bergeron and Marchand knew, you're not going to have a competitor. They didn't take top of the market deals. Bergeron could have gotten like ridiculous contracts throughout his prime, but he wanted to have a more talented team around him, and he got paid good money. And some of you, and this is actually this is a good point. I do want to acknowledge this. Some of you did point out, well, if you were offered that contract, you would sign that and all that stuff. Absolutely. Yes, I would sign that. If I never made millions before in my life and someone just sat there, 13.25, listen, I will ride the pine. I will fill that water bottle like nobody's business. But if I'm making millions of dollars and I have a passion for hockey, like, is Matthews, like, just on endorsements and being in that fantastic market of Toronto, right? Could he make up that money just outside of the contract? Yes. And I guess that's kind of my sticking point with it. If Matthews wanted to win, he could still, I'm not saying to take like $2 million, but even if he just took like the same deal, or like 12 something, or 12.5 million, or like 11.25 million, or something like that, to kind of keep talented players around him, to make sure he has a better third and fourth line, to make sure he has a better bottom pairing defenseman, make sure that he has a very good top four, so when they go into the playoffs, the Maple Leafs can win a Stanley Cup. I know this is a rambly video, and this is something I usually don't do. I do it very heavily edited. I just kind of wanted to give my thoughts, just have a salary cap discussion, because when I look at the salary cap and the estimates, we just don't know. I'm hoping, and I hope for the NHL's sake, I'm hoping the cap goes up to what people are saying. Like they go 4 mil, then 5 mil after that. I want players, and I want the NHL, I want these guys to get paid, because I want more people to be into the sport of hockey. I want this to be profitable. But with a league that lost $1 billion, that doesn't necessarily have the revenue earning power of these other leagues, I'm a little bit, I guess, pessimistic of how much the cap will go up, Because I heard all season, oh, it's going to at least go up 2 to 3 mil, and what did we get? A 1 million bump. And with certain markets struggling, like Arizona and Florida had a great, fantastic run, and I don't have the numbers in front of me. They did support their team far better this season. And to be fair to Florida fans, some of the crap that the former ownership did, like I think you had like an expired lotto ticket, or the one you didn't win, you just get into the game for free or something. So like, I mean, the former owners did the Panthers no favors for their revenue earning. But there's certain markets that are struggling that, due to the CBA, everyone has to kind of take into account. Everyone's kind of like help each other out. I mean, let's just call it what it is. The Arizona Coyotes are the welfare of the National Hockey League. But yeah, this is a rambly video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to probably do some more of this. I want to be more in camera, in person. Going to keep doing the on-camera things. If you haven't already, I really appreciate if you drop a subscribe, like, and comment down below. It really helps out with the algorithm. I've been trying to bring you guys content daily, having good conversations, and whether we agree, disagree, or somewhere in between, I just want to say I appreciate everyone that had dropped very thoughtful and, I would say, in-depth comments in the last video, because it does challenge. I'm like, am I being unfair? Am I kind of making it a little bit too about Matthews? Am I being a little bit too mean? Like I said, closing point is, I just think for the Maple Leafs, you gotta get them just 8 years. If it was an 8-year deal, I think it would have been a fantastic or a very good deal at the least. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below the salary cap. Do you think it's going to go up a few million? Do you think like the NHL, cap friendly, think it's going to go 4 million next year? Or are you kind of like me, a little pessimistic due to everything surrounding it? But I'm Captain Paul. See you in the next one.